What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're gonna rank all of the Battlefield 2042 weapons until Season 6, which includes VHX and the other weapons that came with this season, and all of the other weapons. That's a total of 61 weapons, I believe. We're gonna go ahead and rank them one by one, because it's gonna be way boring just looking at a tier list like this. I'm just gonna put some gameplay back there, so you guys can enjoy that as well. And yeah, that's how we do the video. We've got meta tier, which is only for meta weapons. So not every weapon is going to make its way up there. We've got the excellent tier. We've got a good tier, okay, and useless. So yeah, that's how the video is going to be. But before we start, if you enjoy the content, do make sure to leave a like. That's going to really help the channel to grow bigger and bigger every day. If you want to see more content like this, just comment down below, ask for it. If you got new video ideas, I'll be all ears. And make sure to subscribe to the channel as well, because more videos like this are coming soon. So let's just jump right into the video. The first weapon here is the Avansis. I don't think Avansis is a meta weapon, but I think it's a very good weapon. It's got decent firepower. It's got decent fire rates. So yeah, it's going to pack a serious punch. But to be honest, it's not really my favorite LMG. So I'm just going to give it a good tier right here. So next one, we've got the XCE bar, which I believe is one of the best sniper rifles out there right now in the game. The fire rate of this thing is really fast. Having a gunfight with another sniper, that's going to really come in handy. So for that, I'm going to give it an excellent tier right here. Next one, we've got the MP412 Rex. This one is really one of my favorite sidearms in the game, but it doesn't matter if it's my favorite or not. We have to be honest here. I believe the weapon just deals a very decent damage with a perfectly fine fire rate for a revolver. So I'm just going to give it a good tier right here next to Avansis. Next one, we've got the NVK P125. I believe it's a very decent handgun as well. This weapon is totally imaginary. It's built by Nordvik in Battlefield 2042 lore. So there is no real concept in real world for this weapon. But yeah, the whole thing has got a very decent fire rate. It's very important for a handgun to be able to just deliver a decent fire rate, because you only switch to a pistol or generally a sidearm when you're literally approaching your last resort. So it has to be able to deliver. And this handgun is really one of those weapons that can deliver in some hard situations. So yeah, I'm going to give it another good tier. Okay, we've got the AC9 here. So AC9 is one of the best SMGs out there, no doubt about it. The fire rate is great, but unlike the Case 30, this one actually has decent firepower and damage as well. So what I'm going to do is I'll put it in the excellent tier. Next one, we've got the M44 or the Magnum 44. Recently, I just tried to use a 4x scope on this weapon, and it's really packing a punch. Like, it's now a reliable revolver. Thinking about the fire rate and how slow this weapon is, I just can't really put it anywhere above okay. So I'm just gonna put that in okay tier. And don't worry, we've got useless weapons, okay? We've got useless weapons. We're gonna get to them pretty soon. Next up, we've got the PBX45. I believe we can put this one in meta, because there are so many people using it. The fire rate is perfect, the damage output is perfect, and it literally delivers everything that you need from an SMG. So I'm gonna give it a meta tier. But the next weapon is the true meta right here, the AM40. This weapon is one of the fastest killing weapons in the game, meaning that it has one of the lowest, or probably the lowest TTK in the game right now. I believe it's something like 0.2 seconds, something like that. This is just a killing machine. It's got 40 bullets. The recoil, if you get used to it, is pretty much easy to control. Regardless of having some horizontal recoil, it's perfectly fine. And I believe if you guys are not playing this weapon, you should definitely give it a try. And I do absolutely recommend it. And it's really one of the meta weapons right now in 2042. The next weapon is PF51, which I just absolutely hate. This weapon has 50 bullets. It uses the exact same magazine as the P90, but it just delivers close to 0 damage. I don't know why, but this weapon just doesn't deal damage. That's the simplest way I can put it. Like, literally doesn't deal damage. I'm just gonna have to put it in useless, and I hope you guys can agree to that. Next up, we've got the VCAR, which is one of the meta weapons in 2042 right now. You've probably seen videos about it. There are tons of videos on YouTube just promoting the weapon. And honestly, I haven't played with the weapon that much, but from what I've seen so far and from what the community says about it, this weapon is just a close to medium range beast, especially close range. They say it's going to pack a serious punch. I've played it for just a few minutes and I can agree to that. It's a decent weapon in close range. And what's interesting is it's a DMR, but it just really feels like a handgun, to be honest, with a stock. Anyway, we're going to put this one in meta and move to the next one. So next up is the M240B. This weapon has the highest firepower amongst all the LMGs. If you guys have played the weapon, you probably know that when you shoot someone, it's like you're shooting them with a 50 cal. They're just going to, the TTK is very low. The TTK is insane on this weapon, and I believe it's going to be placed in excellent tier. Next up, we've got the RM68, and ever since this weapon was announced and was a part of 2042, it has been one of the deadliest, most powerful weapons in the game. And I just can't put it in meta because I don't believe it is a meta weapon in the game right now, but it is definitely one of the best assault rifles out there, so I'm going to just put it in the excellent tier. Next up, we've got another useless weapon. I'm just going to let you know this weapon is useless from the get-go. It's the M93R Rafika. This one is a sidearm with burst fire, but the delay between those bursts is so much that you just literally die if you're in a gunfight holding this weapon. Especially if your opponent is just not an AI. You're just gonna die. You can't do anything with this weapon. As a secondary, it's not really reliable. I'm gonna tell you that. So I'm just gonna put it here in useless tier. Next one, we've got the PP2000, which is a decent SMG. Like, the recoil of this weapon is like completely vertical. There's literally no horizontal recoil, making it very easy to control the recoil. But the weapon has a low fire rate, and that's the downside to it. So I'm just going to put it in good tier. Next up, we've got the Shorty, or the Super 500. Shorty is the real name in previous Battlefield titles. The weapon is great, especially if you're having a weapon with little to no close quarter capabilities. This weapon will save your day if you're stuck in a house or just having some close quarter fights. So I'm just gonna put it in good tier. All right, we've got the P90 as our next SMG. So the fire rate of this thing is 900 RPM. It's got a decent fire rate. The magazine holds 50 bullets, which is no slouch, and the firepower is decent. I'm gonna say it's a good SMG. I mean, that's as far as it can go. So the next two weapons are literally meta weapons in 2042. One of them is PP29. It literally has always been the meta weapon. It has always been. Even with nerfs and all that stuff, this weapon is still kicking, and it's one of the best weapons in the game. It's an SMG, but some people even use it as an assault rifle, and it really does the job. And the next weapon is the SFAR MGL, which is just a modernized version of the SCAR H. It's got low fire rates, but to compensate for that, the firepower of this thing is just incredible. It kills enemies in a blink of an eye. Other than that, it's got a grenade launcher as an underbarrel. You can't change that, as you guys probably know, but it can be equipped with a armor-piercing grenade, dealing some interesting damage to armor. Dealing 20-25 damages to a tank. That's no joke, bro. That's literally as high of a damage as the M5 does. So it's going to be a really good choice against armor as well. But against infantry, this weapon is just superb. So yeah, meta tier. Next one, we've got the MP443, which is one of these sidearms that so few people even talk about it. However, I believe it's just a decent sidearm. It's got a nice magazine, the fire rate is nice, but yeah, maybe the firepower or the accuracy is where this weapon might hurt the user. So I'm just gonna put it in okay tier. Next up, we've got the 12M Auto, which is the meta shotgun in the game. I have to be honest, this weapon just really hurts you if someone just plays it against you, because in under 10 meters, maybe under 8 or 7 meters, you literally have no chance. If you guys start shooting each other at the same time, you literally have no chance. The weapon is so fast, deals a hell of a lot of damage. It's a full auto shotgun, so it has to deal a lot of damage. And yeah, it's gonna just destroy you. And there are so many people using it as their main CQB weapon. So, and it's really powerful. So I'm just gonna put it in meta tier. Next one, we've got the Ghostmaker, which is literally a crossbow. In close ranges, it's almost a one-shot kill guaranteed. And in longer ranges with a scope, the weapon just turns into a close-range sniper rifle, something like that. I have to tell you that playing with the weapon is really fun, but if you're outnumbered by 2 to 3 people, and you're just alone, the reloading mechanism can really hurt you because it takes some time to put that arrows in place. And overall, I'm going to say it's a good weapon in the game. Next up, we've got the RPT-31, which is my own favorite LMG in the game. It's really one of the best LMGs out there. I believe the firepower is perfect. With a short barrel, even the fire rate is awesome. So with all that, you've got a complete package, making it a no reload, fast killing machine gun. So I'm just going to put it in excellent tier. Next up, we've got the TV2X. But I'm not going to say it's a useless weapon because it really isn't. However, it's not going to be a good weapon as well. And all of that is because the rate of fire, and it's not a one-shot kill. The headshots are one-shots, but other than that, it's not going to be a one-shot kill. So I'm just not going to put it in good tier, and the okay is, I believe, enough for this. Next up, we've got the infamous SVD, which is a really decent DMR in the game, if you ask me. I don't know, maybe good tier is enough. I'm just not going to put it in excellent because it's not the excellent DMR, to be honest. It's going to be here. So the next weapon is PKP BP. So it's got decent fire rate. The damage is perfect. You've got a bipod and a grip at the same time. That means you don't have to change the attachment if you want to use that bipod for like longer ranges. It's a really good weapon, I have to be honest with you. And I'm just going to put it in the excellent tier. So next up, we've got the M16A3. I really like this weapon because it's a very decent weapon. 800 RPM of rate of fire. You've got decent damage output, and the attachments are also good. You can even attach an underbarrel grenade launcher, making it even deadlier. So I'm just going to put it in the excellent tier. And the other weapon we've got here is the AEK 971, which is, again, another excellent weapon. Especially for CQB, the weapon has like 900 RPM rate of fire, and the damage output is, as you guys know, perfect. And for you guys who have played Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 3, this weapon is just like a memorial to those games. So yeah, it's a great weapon. Excellent tier. Next up, we've got the L9CZ. I believe this weapon is best compared with the G57. And comparing these two together, I believe the G57 is just going to be a better weapon. However, it doesn't mean that the L9CZ is not a good weapon. It really is. The rate of fire is great. The damage output is kind of synced with that rate of fire. And it's going to pack a serious punch. I believe it's a pretty decent sidearm. However, because the G57 is better, I'm just going to give it a good tier and leave it at that. So next weapon is the M60E4. This weapon has the lowest rate of fire amongst all the LMGs. That's like 550 RPM. However, the damage output is like insane. It's something like M240B, but with lower rate of fire. And it has some getting used to, but once you just get used to it, it's going to be a deadly weapon. However, that low fire rate really hurts you when you're like in close quarter and someone like jumps in front of you. Maybe with other LMGs you can do something in that situation, but with the M60E4, it's going to be a hard time for you. So I'm just going to put it in the okay tier. Next up, we've got the LCMG. This is one of the weapons that so many people like and some others just don't. And it's because the strange recoil pattern, I would call it. Like, the weapon is great. You can increase the rate of fire with a short barrel. The damage output is just great. But that recoil kind of hurts you. Especially if you compare this to the RPT-31. It's not going to be an excellent weapon. So because of that, I'm just going to put it in the good tier. Next up, we've got the SVK, and I believe this weapon is the best DMR for long ranges, like medium to long ranges. This DMR is just perfect. For close range, it's a two-shot kill, and it's just a monster of a weapon. I can put it like that. So it's going to be an excellent tier. So the next weapon is the AC-42. Some people just love this weapon. They say with a laser sight, it's going to be even a close range beast, but I just don't like it. And I have to be honest, it's not a close range weapon at all. No matter what you do to it, that burst fire and the delay between those bursts makes this weapon like not a close range weapon. But the weapon is a decent weapon, especially for long ranges. It even destroys DMRs. If you put it on single fire, it destroys DMRs in medium ranges. You're going to be able to hit those DMRs. So I'm just going to put it in good tier. Next up, we've got the Type 88. I believe Type 88 is one of the LMGs that nobody likes. Like, honestly, it's a good weapon for like long ranges. The recoil is somehow very manageable with a bipod. So if you use the weapon with a bipod for like 100 or above 100 meters, your enemies are going to have a hard time. But apart from that, even other LMGs would outgun you. Like, people with other LMGs can easily like outgun you, because I feel like the damage output just doesn't add up to the rate of fire. they're somehow not being matched, and that makes the weapon not a really good weapon. So I'm just going to put it in okay tier. I guess that's the perfect place for this weapon. So next up, we've got the M5A3 to be exact. And yeah, this is one of the excellent weapons. I just kind of like to put it in good tier. I don't know why, but I just can't do it because the weapon is perfect. It's got all you need. The damage output is just a bit lower than most of the assault rifles, but believe me, it's literally a no recoil weapon. And the rate of fire can be easily modified both with short barrel and with different types of ammunition. So I'm just gonna put it in excellent and call it a day. And the other one is the AK-24, which is, in my opinion, another excellent weapon. You can put the armor-piercing grenade launcher on the barrel. You've got a drum mag with 50 bullets, which is no slouch, believe it or not. And it's got one of the, I'm not sure if it's the highest headshot multiplier in the game or one of the highest. I'm just going to put it in the excellent tier. Next up, we've got the G57, which is the very first sidearm that you kind of have in the game. And it's really one of the best. You've got both single and burst firing mode. However, the burst fire on this weapon is really fast, minimum delay, and it just feels like you're holding an SMG. You've got even a drum mag with laser sight. So you've got everything you need from a sidearm, and this weapon just delivers. So excellent tier. Next up, we've got the MCS 880. The weapon was nerfed a few months ago, but it's still a very, very strong shotgun. So I'm not going to call it a meta because we've already got a meta shotgun right there, but it's really a perfect weapon. Next up, we've got the RPK. It's one of the best LMGs in my opinion. It's like a weapon between LMGs and assault rifles, and I believe it can be used as both. Like with a bipod, the weapon becomes literally no recoil, and without a bipod, admitting that the weapon has very few attachments because it's a vault weapon, the recoil is perfectly manageable even with those few attachments. And it's got perfect firepower. It's got decent rate of fire. I believe it's 700 RPM. So yeah, because of all that, I'm just going to put it in excellent tier. So next up, we've got the meta handgun. Let's call it a hand cannon, the Desert Eagle. So ridiculous firepower. In close range, it's going to be a one-shot kill weapon if you hit the head. And the damage output combined with that rate of fire is going to make it a hilarious weapon and a trustworthy handgun. So I'm just going to put it in meta tier. Next up, we've got the A91. I'm going to say if you get used to it, it's a good weapon. But for the majority of people, this weapon just doesn't feel okay. Like so many people just hate it. I don't know why. I believe if you get used to it, it's a decent weapon. Because of all that, I'm just going to put it in okay tier. Now, the next weapon is another sidearm, the MP28. It's basically a handgun with a PDW kit, becoming a personal defense weapon. The hip fire of this weapon is perfect. So the good tier is, I believe, a decent place for this weapon. The next weapon is VHX D3. Where I'm going to place this weapon is going to be really controversial for a lot of people, because a lot of people were crying about this weapon being so strong, and DICE literally nerfed this weapon 3 times because of that. And I have to admit that DICE was acting foolish because people were arguing over the damage output of the weapon and they were just nerfing the accuracy. And after 2 phases of nerfs, they finally came to the conclusion that, hey, let's just decrease the damage and call it a day. So they finally nerfed it. However, the weapon is still good, but I've never been satisfied with this weapon. Never. The horizontal recoil of this weapon makes it a really hard thing to control. People call it a laser weapon. That is just one of the most absurd things I've ever heard in Battlefield 2042, calling the VHX D3 a laser. It's not even a horizontal recoil. It just jumps left and right. You literally can't control it. And people who have seen my gameplay know that I don't have a problem controlling recoils, but this weapon is not a medium to long range weapon at all. And with all 3 phases of nerfs, there's no way for me other than putting it into the good tier. Next up, we've got the G428. This is the latest DMR added to the game. And DICE just wants to call it a close-range DMR, which is absolutely BS. And the reason for that is the rate of fire of this weapon, which is pretty low to be considered a close-range DMR. I'm just going to put it in good tier, and that's it. So next weapon is the M39. It's a Vault DMR. There's something very interesting about this weapon. The close-range capabilities are far beyond the medium range and long range capabilities of this weapon. What I mean by that is if you put a red dot on this weapon and try to play like a close range DMR with it, it's going to pack a serious punch. But for some reason, the medium range and long range for this weapon are just completely just trash. Even in medium range, like pretty decent medium ranges, like, I don't know, 40, 50 meters, the recoil of the weapon just makes it impossible to be able to hit those targets accurately. And because of that, I just can't put it in the excellent tier. So it's going to be placed here beside the G428. Next up, we've got the Gold Sniper Magnum. It's the infamous Gold Magnum from BF Bad Company 2. It's a vault sniper rifle with perfect fire rates and perfect accuracy as well. So all of that combined makes this a very good weapon. So I'm going to put it in the excellent tier. So the next weapon is the G36C, also known as GEW46 in Battlefield 2042. The damage is great. The recoil is perfectly manageable, at least for close to medium range. It's got a decent fire rate. It's I believe 700 RPM. I just can't put it in good tier. That's got to be an excellent tier for this weapon. Next up, we've got the NVK S22. The weapon is just something like the 12M Auto, but for some reason, people just tend to play this one not as much as the 12M Auto. So I'm just going to put it in good tier. Next up, we've got the DXR-1. This is the most accurate sniper rifle in the game, having low rate of fire, but providing better accuracy over all of these sniper rifles. And it's also my favorite sniper rifle, and it's going to be in excellent tier. All right, so next up, we've got the infamous M1911. This is one of my favorite handguns in the game. I have to be honest with you. I'm not going to put it in the excellent tier because it's just not a good place for this one. But having an 18-round magazine with like the firepower of an M1911, it's just going to be a good weapon. Next up, we've got the DM7 DMR. I'm not going to say much about it, but it's like so many people call it a decent weapon. Like it's not the perfect weapon, but it's not an okay weapon either. So the perfect place will be a good tier. So after all this time, we've got another meta weapon, the BSV. So let me just put it here in meta. Next one, we've got the SWS. I believe it's the perfect balance between all of these sniper rifles. And it's just a midline for sniper rifles. And so many people play with this weapon as well. So excellent tier. Next up, we've got the ACWR. This weapon has a ridiculously accurate hipfire. Apart from that, you've got a 40-round magazine. You've got perfect firepower. You've got perfect rate of fire. And because of all that, it's going to be an excellent weapon. Next up, the NTW50. It's a one-shot kill in almost all ranges. So I'm just going to put it in good tier. Next up, we've got the MP9. And I love this weapon regardless of so many people just calling it a trash SMG. And probably it's because of the damage output. That's a bit off. But the fire rate is perfect on this weapon. I'm not going to put it in okay because it really deserves higher. So I'm going to just put it in good tier. Next up, we've got the M416. The M416 in Battlefield 2042 is a vault weapon and I believe does not have the needed accuracy to be competing with other ARs. And that is the reason why I just give it a good tier and just leave it at that. Next up, we've got the MK4 multi-use weapon. You can use it as an assault rifle or a sniper rifle. So many people use it as a sniper rifle and it's a freaking laser gun. So I'm just going to give it a excellent tier. Next up, we've got the XM8 and let me tell you, no matter how many times I just compare this weapon to the RPK just wins. I genuinely feel it's a better weapon. So because of that, I'm just going to give it a good tier. Next up, we've got the AK-74U. Like getting a T1 Mastery for this one, it was a freaking nightmare. You just can't call this weapon even an okay weapon. So I'm just going to put it in useless. I know I love this weapon. It's a really iconic one, but in Battlefield 2042, being a vault weapon, it just doesn't work. This weapon just doesn't work. Next up, we've got the MTAR-21. Considering it is a very high rate of fire assault rifle, the accuracy and the recoil are pretty fine even for medium ranges with higher magnification scopes. So it's really one of my favorite ARs and I'm just going to put it in excellent tier. And finally, we've got the K30, which is one of the best SMGs out there. Ridiculous rate of fire. It's the highest rate of fire among all the SMGs, just making it a ridiculous, excellent weapon. And with K30 being the excellent weapon, our tier list comes to an end. And finally, here's how it looks. I'm pretty sure so many people out there disagree with some of my choices, and that's perfectly fine because after all, this tier list is just based on my own experience and point of view. It is definitely different from person to person. So do make sure to comment down below and let me know what choices are you against and what's the reason for that. And I'll be all ears. So hope you enjoyed the video and thanks for watching. Until next time, stay cool.